P&rn Theater is a 2002 French film by director Jacques Nolot. It features a day in the business of a porno theater in France and its patrons. The movie was made in a time when French films were exploring what could be depicted in good taste in film. This is usually known as French New Extremity, and it usually skewed towards the barbarous and cruel, but it took a couple of detours into the horny. I'm all about horny, I'm all about smutty, and this movie is particularly smutty. It was cited by John Waters as one of his favorite films, and played in the Cannes Film Festival under the Un Certain Regard category. Unfortunately, the movie is perhaps too smutty even for my channel. I can't really show anything that happens in the film, so instead, here's a list of things that are in P&rn Theater 2002. Drag queens. A drag queen with lingerie, but the cups are cut out to show their tits. It's actually two of them. There's two with such lingerie. Oh, by the way, how do I describe this? all of the customers, all of the people depicted in P&rn Theater, with the exception of one character, are men or were assigned male at birth. There are a couple of femme-presenting characters, but I wouldn't say that they're all trans. They run a spectrum from drag queens to trans, so I guess I'll just use an umbrella term provided by the film of queens. A drag queen sucking a John's dick shown, while another patron watches rubbing theirs. A drag queen sucking off a John while others watch and try to rub their dicks into the drag queen's mouth, and then the John wishes to escalate to penetrative sex, which they do after he's put on a condom. Another patron, during this time, also wishes to engage in penetrative sex, but the drag queen is out of condoms, so they refuse. After the first patron finishes, they all leave, revealing one overweight patron in a nice sports jacket rubbing his micro-penis. A few fully out homosexuals lurking in the corners, trying to entice the straight men in the theater, having less luck than the drag queens. An aged homosexual who is friendly with the cashier. He gets in for free. He holds a large sum of money, which he strategically pockets in different parts of upon his body, in case he gets beaten or robbed. This is played by the director, Jacques Nolot. Said homosexual engages with the man in the theater, who asks him if he has a big dick, and then indicates that he has his own big dick. Asks if the man has big balls, and then indicates that he has his own big balls, and that the man should stroke them. Asks if the homosexual man has AIDS, and that they have AIDS back in the military camp where he was based. Then proceeds to stroke off to the on-screen depictions until he climaxes, upon which time he ejaculates onto the elder man's stomach upon his request. The older man then reads a poem about death to the cashier. Cops come in and break up the show for a little bit. They question the patrons and only detain minorities. Awesome. Two patrons rubbing themselves to climax while stroking on the tits of one of the drag queens. This is actually the one who's running the granny gimmick, while another one strokes on the drag queen's flaccid penis. Strokes on the queen's flaccid penis. Strokes on the queen's flaccid penis. At this time, a man comes up and tries to raw dog her, but she pleasantly reminds him that he doesn't have a condom. A man describes how he used to watch his parents having sex as a child, and how he used to lay down naked on top of his mom, but he says it in a nice way.
C'est drôle. À 16 ans, je cassais la galopédie. À 20, je couchais avec.
Wistful. A man receiving a beige, completely dead-eyed, completely no-selling it. I don't know if this happens to people a lot who perform oral sex on men, but I've heard stories. In an actual scene where they watch the movie. Yeah, so that was P&rn Theater. I wouldn't exactly say that it's for everyone. I guess if you had to compare it with something, it'd be like a smutty version of Goodbye Dragon Inn. But Goodbye Dragon Inn was a little bit horny in its own right. While both movies are about a similar subject, I think they achieve a different effect. I think Goodbye Dragon Inn is kind of nostalgic about movies specifically and the movie watching experience. I wouldn't really say that porn theater is like nostalgic about movie watching specifically. I think it's nostalgic about the culture of anonymity and meeting up at a porno theater. I think porn theater is more about human connection, connecting with other people under the guise of anonymity. It's actually an interesting story about how people communicate seen through the lens of this entirely male populace. All these guys watching a straight porno and engaging in kind of fluid sexuality within that space. They're all horny. They all want to get it up. They all want to get off, and they'll do so by any means. But they're also men, so they strictly will not talk about it. And so it becomes a kind of dance, a little mating ritual of everybody trying their best to meet their sexual needs without ever demanding for it or asking for it. It's all done under subterfuge and body language and intuition, and becomes it becomes a surprisingly feminine and safe space under this guise. The men learn to communicate non-verbally. They make agreements on what consent is and what non-consent or refusal is. Money is exchanged when it's asked for, or sex or intimacy is given freely if that's what's so desired. It's in some ways a beautiful story about human connection, even in the midst of this post-AIDS kind of era. And it ends in kind of a way that, like, all movie dates should end, hopefully, with the prospect of sex. A young mechanic is flirting with the cashier the entire time, and the cashier has a nice little conversation with her favorite homosexual patron, who also has a crush on the mechanic. The mechanic has a crush on her. The patron has a crush on the mechanic, and she kind of goes with everything. She's lived a full life of sexual exploration and likes to take things as they come. And so at the conclusion of the film, she uses her wiles to perhaps bring the mechanic back to the elder gay man's house so that they can have a threesome, and it's a happy ending. Not, for my money, not quite as romantic as the ending of Goodbye Dragon Inn, but a similar conclusion, to be honest. Yeah, I don't know if you'd really... those are the things you could get out of the movie. I don't know if you'd necessarily enjoy it while receiving those messages, but that's really about your own individual experience. I don't know where you could find this to watch it, but if this synopsis has intrigued you, seek it out. Yeah, till next time, keep watching smutty movies.